Hi, here is a quick basics. When I say quick, I don't know how long this is going to take. Basics of rendering in Matrix 9 using V-Ray. So this is the ring I'm going to render, which was created in Clayu. So this is not a production piece. I tend to create a render piece and a production piece. So the production piece would obviously have higher areas and just look different, so to speak. So just be aware of when rendering you're going to be producing a render piece and a production piece in some cases. Sometimes what I'll do is advise, if you think you can get away with it with the client, is show them a production piece and then show them one from your display case of what the claws, prongs will look like post-production. So without further ado, let's have a look at placement first of your piece. So to get continuity, what I prefer to do, highlight my model, press F3, which is zoom extent, F5, which centers it. So in some cases you've got this going on where it's going all over the place. So F5 centers at your viewport, F3 does this. Now to get it into the correct position, let's just click reset, then double click perspective, then press F5 to center our viewport, and then F3 zoom extent. So if you do that every time, you're going to have it in the same location every time you do a render. Now there's a few ways to get this right every time, which is that way, but this angle might not be to your liking. So let's open up the render engine. So render, then this button here. This opens up this panel. So this is where you apply your materials to your piece, or one of the ways you can apply materials to a piece. I'm going to show you another way. What I'm going to do is show you the view manager, and I have a few in here. 3 rings in perspective. So if I click that, that was when I was rendering three rings at once. Brooch perspective, heads style perspective, laid down. This is when the ring is laid down at 1080 by 1080p. One ring perspective. So this is one of my main ones that I use, but I've noticed straight away, but there's a little bit too much real estate above here. To solve that, all you do is press F5 to center, F3 if you want to go for a zoom extent, and then what I can do is I can create a new one ring perspective. So let's get rid of this one. Let's stick that in the trash. Delete, to continue. Yes. So now what I want to do is save this. And let's just add from viewport. And then we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call it one ring. Call it 3 view. That looks about right. Let's click OK, and now we've got a new position. So let's say we screwed it up and we were twisting it around and showing the client what it looks like. All I need to do is click this and we'll get exactly the same position. So for your website you're going to want the same angle of view all the way through your website, just for continuity. It just looks more professional, in my humble opinion, and most of the big boys out there do the same. So now I've got that. Richard Moon, which is one of my friends in island, 2-ring perspective, so this is when I've got a matching band to a piece, and this was for another client, Vicky. This was for some pendants I was doing. So the one we're going to use is 1-ring 3/4 view perspective, so that's the one that I'm going to use. So let's just close this down for a moment, just have a look at a few things. Oh, by the way, that I just showed you is good for animation as well, to get the ring centered. So let's go for machine, or we could go for shader. Doesn't really work because you'll notice that this is a mesh. Meshes tend to render better from a speed point of view, especially in animation, which I might do again. See, I don't use this a great deal. We'll use plastic. Yeah, let's go for plastic. Right, applying the materials. F6 with nothing selected brings this up. Let's pin this little pin here. So that's whatever I click, that will change and morph to match my selection. So I'm trying to click a stone, yeah, and so on and so on. But what I wanted to show you is this. If I click here, material mode, click my metal, and if we click silver, for instance, there's a drop down here with continuum or sterling. Click the button here, and now I'm going to right click the colour layer that my stones are on. So that selects all the stones. I can then go to stones, go down to diamond, select diamond, green button, and that's place those metals on those objects. So why have I done it that way? Well, that is one way of applying your materials for the render engine, but this has something else with it. Under metal weights, let's just peel that off and we'll bring it over to this front and the center. If I click calculate, select object, so select the object, calculate, that's going to give me all the metals and their corresponding weights. But what you can do is click user object materials, and that will give me the weight of that depending on what I'd applied to it. Okay, so if I select this and click yellow gold, and we'll make it 18 karat yellow, and then click calculate again, select the object, this will give me the weight in 18 karat yellow. This also doubles as a way of applying the materials to the object, other than going through the material editor and grabbing the materials. It works both ways. You know, you've got metal types here. What I would say is white gold in the render engine is not rhodium plated and doesn't look too great. In my humble opinion, I use silver. I don't use platinum so much, it tends to look a bit dead. And yellow gold's fine as is, it's just the way I work. So that's one way of applying the materials to the object, and it's got all the materials here that are here. So whatever you can do here, you can do here as well. This is if you don't want to open up the render engine. So if I go to rendered view, because I applied that material, so if I click that and click silver and apply it in this view, it will appear like that. If you press F7 on your keyboard, it'll get rid of the grid. So sometimes you could get away with just showing the customer this, and this is a kind of counter sketch view. I'm not sure whether Matrix Gold does this, it probably does. So you've also got a working render, which looks quite cool as well. So what have we got? We've got working render, wire render, which doesn't look too clever. Working shade, presentation, which I think was the one that I was thinking of. That's the one that you would probably use in front of a customer. And I know I'm going a bit off piste here. If I what am I trying to do? If here you press Ctrl T and go to display, you can change these parameters as well. So if I went to bottom color, and we'll change that to black and click OK. You see how that's morphing? So we could go up here and go for something funky. Go for that colour there. So I think you kind of get the idea. Gradient 2 color, solid color, use that application settings. Image file, you could put an image file on the back of here as well. So this is editing the presentation settings, where you can go in and goof around with here. I'll leave that to you to play around with. Didn't really come here to do any of that. So let's go to working render, for instance. Suddenly regret doing that. I think when I reboot, or if I go back in and just change it back to the way it was, it should be fine. I just wanted to show you one other thing. If you're in front of the customer, or your screen is, whilst you're working, sorry about that kind of goofiness, it's when I'm moving my mouse. What this does is allows me to manipulate the piece to a certain point and then let it go. So this is good for very, very quick animations. I'm using it called Snagit. Snagit takes screen grabs like the snipping tool, but it also has an animation feature, so you could take video of your ring rotating like this. Just be aware it does some goofy kind of weirdness like that when you go near it. I'm not sure whether it's graphics card or just turntable. And you can speed this up to drive everyone nuts. I'll turn it down like that. So if we press, let's get that into a position. Works. Slow it down a bit. And then let it go. So you could have that in your store window, just rotating like that while you go and serve a customer, put a battery in their watch or whatever. Turn that off and that stops that. Let's go back to Palastic. Let's get back to the rendering. So I've shown you from F6 you can apply the materials through here. Let's just switch that back to that, or it'll confuse me later on. So let's go into the render engine. Let's put a ground plane down, which is this kind of P on a piece of paper, as I call it. This is your render button. This render active view. So if you had, let's say, this view up, and we're going to press the F3, oops, F5, F3. If you press that, it would render the item in this view, which is sometimes good if you wanted through finger, top view, side view, 3/4 view, blah blah blah. We're going to work in perspective. Oops. Perspective. Remember what I said before? View manager. For continuity, let's just click that so we get the same render every time. So we're going to go back to the material editor, and apply the materials. So I want this to be in platinum, but I'm not going to click platinum, I'm going to click silver, and I'm going to show you all the reasons why. So if I go to platinum, it has a bluish tinge to it. If I click silver, it's a little bit more neutral white gold. It's got a tinge to it, which I'm personally not keen on, especially for the market in the UK. So we're going for white gold, and we're going to apply that material to the object. The gems, rather than holding down shift and clicking all these stones, if you right click the colour layer that they are on, you can then go to gems, search out your diamonds. So if you're using diamond quite a lot, so we click diamond and we click this button here. What you can also do is material save as. And we're going to rename diamond 01 diamond, and we're going to click save. So what's happened now is I've created a new material. I haven't really, it's just the same material, but I've renamed it 01 diamond. So anything with a number in front of it appears first in the list. So now I don't have to go searching for diamond, because it's at the top. So let's do that for sapphire so you get what I'm on about. Sapphire down here somewhere. There we go. Sapphire blue. Save as. And we'll call this 02 sapphire blue. Save. So now I've got 02 sapphire and 01 diamond. I really wanted that there, so I might delete that later. So getting back to the rendering, let's start with the very basics. Classic fast. What these styles are predetermined parameters: lighting, HDRI, hyperdynamic range, something or other. I don't remember. If I don't remember it, I'm not interested. So we're going to apply this scene and click render. Leave it on the 640 by 480. This is good for previewing for yourself. So if you're on the right track, it renders the quickest. Be aware though, if you maximize this, it's going to pixelate. It's this slight fuzziness on the edge, and the diamonds look a bit horrible. Once you're happy with it, then go in here and max this out, 1920 by 1080. Click render. It's going to take longer to render, and the rendering is determined by the CPU, not the GPU. You see these little buckets? This means I have 8 little buckets. So this is a hyper-threaded i7 processor. Just let that finish, and that's what you're going to get. And what I would say is always do this on this 1920 1080, so the customer sees it at its best, and then they're going to be less prone to be zooming in to look at things. So let's just close that out. Let's take this back up to, what was it? I can't remember what the default was. Yeah, we'll go for that one. So let's have a look at the materials. But you're griping, I want it in platinum. The colour it is on here is a material, really. So we'll render it out as platinum. So that has a kind of bluish tinge to it. So if we go for white gold, click the material and render that out, and that's That's gross. See, that is the natural colour of white gold before plating, I believe. So I never use white gold. I always use silver. Let's render that out. Quick look. I just think that looks more pleasing. You're not going to make it in silver. If you're going to make it in platinum, make it in platinum. So let's close that out. So that's one of the reasons I always use silver. Let's just have a quick look at a yellow gold render. Render that out. And if you decide that that colour of yellow gold is too rich, then walk it back on this. Oops. Apply it. And render again. It's probably a little bit more realistic. I think I'm going to leave it on yellow gold. It's a little bit more vivid for this video. So what else have we got? Now these are the styles. So let's try Color Dome Fast and see what happens. Render. So there's a play of blue here that's appeared, and it's rendering a little bit slower. There's a large black area here. It's not too bad as a render. I'm going to leave it on this lower setting. So let's have a look at Cut Out White Fast, which is my current favourite. Just feel it works very, very well. It's nice and bright. Background's really white, which is nice, especially if you're going to be advertising on Amazon. They always want everything on a white background, or totally cut out. Now to me this doesn't look particularly real, especially the diamonds. There's not a huge amount you can do about that. It's more via these environments. Right, fall off slow. Why is it called slow? Well, it renders slowly. You see how it's suddenly ground to a halt? Where my process is trying to crunch through the render. See how much slower it is, and it's a bit fuzzy up here. I'm just going to pause while that's doing that. So this is the render finished, which doesn't look too bad. It's got this nice brushed finish, but it took far too long. So I'm going to save that. So this is the finished piece, finished render, so to speak. So that took quite a long time to do. So to speed up, let's say you like fall off slow, but you want it to be fall off fast, let's say. The environment is this image here, which is supplied for you via these HDRs, which is under Users Public. Documents, Matrix 9, Common V-Ray Library, Environment Maps. So these are all the environment maps that they give you, and there's a lot more here than there is in this list, so that's for you to have an adventure with. But this isn't what slows it down, and neither is the lighting. It's the camera. Now the camera is where it's at as regards speed, and it's this depth of field that slows it down. Depth of field is an absolute CPU, GPU killer in any application. So let's get rid of that, because it has no place in our render, because there isn't several pieces. What depth of field is the background and foreground fuzzy, and where the camera is pointed at, it's nice and crisp in that area. So let's get rid of that. Let's reapply the environment and render again. and this time I can let the render go, because you can see it's like Speedy Gonzales. It's super fast, and there's hardly any difference between that and the one that we just did. So let's bring that up. Can't see a great deal of difference between the two. So stripping out that depth of field made it a lot quicker and no detriment to the render. So let's try another one. Fifth Avenue Slow. Now Fifth Avenue Slow does what it says on the tin. It's slow and very bright. So I'm not going to let that continue because it just takes too long. I'm going to strip out the depth of field, reapply it, render, and then see how much quicker it is. And it is a lot quicker, but it's, for me, it's far too bright. And if this was white gold or a white metal, it would just be completely washed out. Now you can play around with the lighting. You know, I could reduce the lighting down there in the environment, because both of these light the object. So if we did this to 0.75, let's say, reapply, render. So that's darkened down a little bit, but it's still like really bright. So let's take that down to 0.75 maybe, and apply and render. Now you're starting to see a little bit better. Let's go back to the environment and reset that one to 1, apply, render. And that looks a lot better. So all we did was reduce the lighting by 0.25, and that just gave a better result. So Fifth Avenue, have a play with it. Light camera action. Again, that has this depth of field on, which has no relevance. So what I did is I created a light camera action fast. In saying that, it looks like I have, let's just delete that style. So let's have a look at lights, camera action, just to see what this looks like. So let's apply that. We'll render. Pause. So this is the result, which took ages. This fuzzy area here, and then you'll notice it's quite clean there. That's depth of field, which I'll do in another video. So undesirable in this case. So scene manager, depth of field off, reapply, and render again, because the drama of this particular render with the spotlight is really nice. It's the caustics, that kind of gold reflection you saw there is, I believe, caustics. Pretty sure it's caustics. So that you'll notice that this is far quicker, and it's because we've turned off that depth of field. Now you can do depth of field in Photoshop, you can do depth of field in Matrix through the render, which takes ages, or you can do depth of field through the render editor, which is worth exploring. So you do get this nice caustics effect here, which is is worth playing around with. But I would save that up excuse me, as save style as fast. Save. So now in the menu you've got lights, camera action, fast lights, camera action, slow. And the only difference is depth of field is turned off. Matrix preview, have a play with it by all means. It's not my favourite of things. It has limited applications other than for creating your own style sheets, which I think I've done a video of, may or may not have. Doesn't have a great deal of applications in regards to showing customers. Render plastic, satin blurred, these you all need to play with yourself. White room is quite a nice render style. Let's just render that out and show what that looks like. Now it is quite orangey. It looks like my stones. Looks like my stones have still retained the cartoon effect from the previous render, so let's just stop that. Let's highlight all the stones. Go to diamond. Apply that. White room slow. Scene. Let's just reapply that because I turned off depth of field and render. I just want to show you a few things that I do with this particular render style. So that looks quite vivid. Look, the ground plane, because you can apply materials to the ground plane, if I click this button it tells me what it is, which is white reflective. I want white matte, so apply that and render it out again. Let's just have a quick look at what that looks like. So it's got rid of that reflection, but it's still got an orange tinge to this, which is from the HDR effect. Which isn't too bad. So scene, environment. So this is your environment. Let's click, oops, not that one. Let's click this little button here and desaturate it so it's black and white, and save that out and render again. Doesn't look a lot different, so let's just come out of there, apply that and render it again. So then what I've done is I've taken the colour out of the environment, which makes it a little less colourful on the ground plane and in the model. So let's go one step further, let's go to the lighting, zap that out, save, apply, render. So what I've done is I've taken all the colour out of the environment. The only thing you're going to struggle with this is to get this background very white, and the reason being is the lighting is quite intense as is. What you could change the lighting to though is colour. Apply that. Let's see what that looks like when we render it out again. That doesn't look too bad. doesn't look too bad at all. So now you've got this nice white background, and that was to do with the lighting. So I could save that out as a modified white room. I could call it white room 2 fast. But the main thing is, under your scene editor via camera, is to get rid of depth of field. Right, I think that really covers everything that I want to cover on rendering. Hopefully there's enough there for you to work with. So I'll come back with depth of field and maybe an animation video in the future. Thanks a lot then, bye bye.